Hello, lovely, and welcome back to Discover with Lily. It's so good to see you again. Tonight, I have a special story for you. Something a little warmer, a little more intimate to keep you company. So, I want you to sit back, relax your shoulders, and let my voice take you somewhere unforgettable. Ready? Let's begin. The rain was coming down in sheets, washing the city streets in a blurry neon glow. Elias sat at the far corner of the Velvet Note, a dimly lit jazz lounge that felt like a secret kept from the rest of the world. He was a man who worked hard, a man who carried the weight of the world on his shoulders all week. But tonight was just for him. He took a slow sip of his bourbon, the amber liquid burning beautifully down his throat, warming his chest. He loosened his tie, unbuttoning the top of his crisp white shirt, finally allowing himself to breathe. And that's when the heavy oak door of the lounge opened. A gust of cool, rain-scented air swept into the warm room, carrying with it a presence that commanded the attention of every man at the bar. But she only had eyes for Elias. Her name was Serena. She wore a deep emerald green dress made of a silk so thin it clung to every single curve of her body like a second skin. The fabric gathered beautifully around her hips, and a daring slit revealed the smooth, flawless skin of her long legs as she walked. Her dark hair was damp from the rain, tumbling wildly over her bare shoulders. She paused in the doorway. Her eyes, a piercing, playful hazel, scanned the room, brushing past the others until they locked onto Elias. She didn't look away. Most women would blush and avert their gaze. Not Serena. She let a slow, wicked smirk play on her deep red lips. Elias felt a sudden electric pull in his chest. His pulse quickened. He rested his glass on the table, unable to tear his eyes away from the rhythmic sway of her hips as she began to walk directly toward him. The soft tapping of her heels against the hardwood floor seemed to perfectly match the slow, thumping bass line of the jazz band. She stopped right beside his small, intimate table. Up close, she smelled absolutely intoxicating. A blend of rich vanilla, dark sandalwood, and the fresh, wild scent of the rain. "It's awful weather for a man to be drinking all alone," she murmured. Her voice was husky, smooth as velvet, and it sent a pleasant shiver straight down Elias's spine. Elias looked up at her, matching her confident gaze. "I wasn't planning on being alone," he said, his voice deep and steady. "I was just waiting for the right company." Serena's smirk deepened. She slid into the leather booth beside him, not across from him, beside him. She sat so close that the warmth radiating from her thigh ghosted against his. "Well," she whispered, leaning in just a fraction, "I hope I was worth the wait." The waitress came by, and Elias ordered her a glass of red wine. When it arrived, Serena reached for the stem of the glass. As she did, she intentionally let her soft, manicured fingers brush against the rough, strong knuckles of Elias's hand. The contrast was staggering. The soft friction of her skin against his sent a jolt of heat straight to his core. Elias's eyes darkened. He was a gentleman, but he was still a man, and the way she was looking at him, like she knew exactly what he was thinking, was driving him crazy. "You have very intense eyes," Serena said softly, tracing the rim of her wine glass with one finger. Her gaze dropped to his lips for a split second, then slowly dragged back up to his eyes. "Tell me, Elias, do you always look at a woman like you're trying to figure out all her secrets?" Elias leaned in, invading her space just a little. He could feel her warm breath against his jaw. "Only when I think her secrets are worth knowing," he replied. Serena let out a low, breathy laugh. She shifted in her seat, crossing her legs. As she did, her knee brushed firmly against his, and this time she didn't pull away. She left it there, a constant, burning point of contact beneath the table. The jazz band transitioned into a slow, sweeping blues melody. Serena turned her body fully toward him. The silk of her dress slipped slightly off one shoulder, exposing her collarbone. "Dance with me," she whispered. It wasn't a question. It was a demand, wrapped in a temptation. Elias didn't hesitate. He stood up, offering her his hand. She took it, allowing him to pull her up. She stepped effortlessly into his chest. He wrapped one strong arm around her waist, his large hand resting firmly on the small of her back. Through the thin silk of her emerald dress, he could feel the feverish heat of her skin. She was so soft, so perfectly molded to his frame. Her other hand crept up his chest, her fingers lightly playing with the unbuttoned collar of his shirt, grazing the skin of his neck. They moved together, a slow, hypnotic sway. Every step they took created a beautiful, agonizing friction between their bodies. Elias could feel the soft, full press of her chest against him as she breathed. "You're a good dancer," she murmured against his ear. Her lips practically brushed his earlobe as she spoke, making his grip on her waist tighten instinctively. "You're making it very easy," He growled softly, lowering his head so his cheek rested against hers. Serena tilted her head back, offering her long, elegant neck to him. Her eyes were heavy with desire. Her lips parted as she took in a ragged breath. The chemistry between them was a thick, heavy fog. It was consuming. The entire bar faded away. There was no music. There was no bartender. There was only the scent of her vanilla perfume, the heat of her skin, and the undeniable primal pull between a man and a woman. The song ended, but neither of them let go. "It's too hot in here," Serena whispered, her chest rising and falling heavily against his. "Take me outside." Elias grabbed his coat, threw it over his arm, and placed his hand on the small of her back, guiding her out the heavy oak doors. The moment they stepped out, the cool night air hit them. The rain was still pouring, but under the wide awning of the lounge, they were perfectly dry. The street was empty. They were entirely alone in the dark. Serena backed up until her shoulders hit the brick wall of the alleyway. The shadows hid them perfectly. She looked up at him, the neon light catching the fierce, hungry look in her eyes. Elias stepped into her space, trapping her between his body and the wall. He raised one hand, his fingers gently brushing the damp hair away from her face, his thumb tracing the soft curve of her lower lip. She, at his touch, leaning her face into his broad palm. He couldn't wait another second. Elias lowered his head, and their lips finally met. The kiss was explosive. It wasn't gentle. It was deep, passionate, and desperate. Serena's arms immediately wrapped around his neck, pulling his head down harder against hers. She tasted like red wine and intoxicating sweetness. Elias, his arms wrapping entirely around her waist, pulling her hips flush against his. She let out a soft, helpless sound as his hands roamed down the silk of her back, gripping her firmly, reminding her of his strength. They kissed until they were entirely breathless, their mouths moving in perfect, greedy sync. The rain poured around them, but they were burning up. When they finally broke apart to catch their breath, their foreheads rested against each other. Serena's lipstick was wonderfully smudged, her chest heaving as she looked up into his eyes. She reached into his jacket pocket and slipped a small piece of paper inside, her fingers lingering against his chest. "My address," she whispered, her voice dripping with promise. "I'll leave the door unlocked for you. Don't keep me waiting." With a final, lingering kiss on his jaw, She slipped out from under the awning, walking away into the misty rain, leaving Elias burning, breathless, and ready for the rest of the night. And that is where we will leave Elias and Serena for tonight. I hope you enjoyed that little escape as much as I enjoyed telling it to you. If my voice helped you relax, please leave a like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments what kind of story you'd love to hear next. Until then, lovely, see you next story. Good night.